Good afternoon, and I'd like to welcome everyone joining us for this afternoon's webinar. We are going to wait just a few more minutes to let more folks log on, and we will begin shortly. I am going to go over a couple of housekeeping while we wait items. If you notice, all videos have been turned off and all microphones have been muted for participants. Questions can be submitted using the chat. They will be seen by the host and the panelists only. The chat function has been turned off. Questions will be answered at a pause around halfway through today's presentation, and then there will be time at the end of the presentation for additional questions as well. So we are going to wait just another minute or so, and then we will get started. Okay, in the interest of time, we are going to get started. So I want to welcome everyone again to today's webinar. My name is Marie Eagle, and I'm a project coordinator for the ARC of Michigan. And we partner with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Administration to bring you this webinar series. The department is committed to providing ongoing support and guidance to our PHP and CMHSP partners in order to establish and implement best practices across the state on a wide range of topics related to person-centered planning. The intent of these webinars is to share information and established best practices on person-centered planning, but not to provide individualized technical assistance. So if there do end up being questions on an individual basis, those may be answered at a later time after the webinar individually. So this month's topic is using the Charting the LifeCourse framework to improve person-centered planning practices. And we will be presented by Tracy, Vincent, and Tedra Jackson of the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. So I am going to turn it over to you ladies, and thank you for being here.
All right, thank you so much, Marie. So good afternoon. I am Tracy Vincent, and I am with the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. And presenting with me is my colleague, Tedra Jackson. And we are going to be sharing the work of our community of practice for supporting families, the work we've been doing around using Charting the LifeCourse framework to improve person-centered planning in Michigan. I want to mention I am not able to turn on my video. So I'm hoping that maybe that can be fixed, but I'm going to just keep presenting here. All right, so before we get into the work of our community of practice, I do want to start by giving you some background information, context on the National Community of Practice for Supporting Families. So in 2011, leaders in the disability field came together at the Wingspread Conference to develop policy recommendations to improve supports to families with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The Wingspread Summit produced a report, which is called the Wingspread Report, that outlined recommendations ensuring that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are fully integrated and included in society, and recognizing the critical role of families in their lives. So in about 2012, the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities funded a national community of practice for supporting families to build capacity across and within states to create policies, practices, and systems to better assist and support families across the lifespan. And so they ended up awarding a 5-year grant between 2012 and 2017 to the National Association on State Directors of Developmental Disability Services, otherwise known as NASDs, and they collaborated with the University of Missouri, Kansas City to form a national project team. And so the goal of supporting families, as defined by the community of practice, is to best support, nurture, love, and facilitate opportunities for the achievement of self-determination, interdependence, productivity, integration, and inclusion in all facets of community life for their family members. And so what began as a 5-year grant with 6 original state members has now continued to expand, and now we have 19 state teams that are part of the National Community of Practice. The teams are comprised of both public state agencies and grassroots stakeholders who are influencing and supporting transformation to support good lives for people with disabilities and their families. So Michigan joined the National Community of Practice in 2019, and a requirement to be part of the Community of Practice is that it has to be a partnership between the Developmental Disabilities Council and the DD agency. And in our case, it's the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Administration. So we ended up forming a state team, and that is made up of people who have the expertise and commitment for advocating for change at different levels. And so our state team is made up of, like I had mentioned, we have staff from the Developmental Disabilities Council. We have staff from the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Administration. We have Marie Eagle as the site reviewer. She sits on our state team. We have a representative from the Children's Special Health Care Services, from Integrated Services of Kalamazoo, and we also have a representative from MyDDI through Wayne State University. And so that makes, that is our team makeup. And our team receives technical assistance, tools and products and support from the national team so that we can integrate innovative practices into our existing system change efforts. And so this is really a learning collaborative that provides opportunity for innovation. Our state team is guided by the Charting the LifeCourse framework, and this framework helps individuals and families develop a vision for a good life, think about their options, identify and find support, and discover how they can live their best life. The framework is comprised of a set of principles that support the core belief that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their dreams in the community. And so this belief drives the work of our community of practice throughout all 19 states. And so now I'm going to quickly and briefly go through the Charting the LifeCourse principles and talk a little bit about what Charting the LifeCourse is. And some of you on this webinar may be familiar with the LifeCourse or have heard about the LifeCourse. But it was really created to help individuals and families of all abilities and all ages develop a vision for a good life, to think about what they need to know and do, identify how to find or develop support, and discover what it takes to live the lives that they want to live. So when we're talking about change, you really can't change the name of something or add a little more or a little less to something that you're already doing and expect a different outcome. And so what we're really talking about and what is needed is transformational change. And so we really have to think very differently when it comes to supporting people to achieve good lives. And the type of change that is needed is fundamental reordering of thinking, beliefs, culture, relationships, and behavior. We want to turn assumptions inside out and disrupt familiar rituals and structures. And the change that is needed rejects command and control relationships in favor of co-creative partnerships. And so the LifeCourse framework is the way that we can achieve this transformational change because we're having different conversations. It's a different way to problem solve, to navigate, to educate, and to help people plan. And the tools that go along with the framework really helps give confidence it helps to start those conversations and help people to actually being able to use those tools. So we also need to look at services and supports because they're evolving. So if you look at the circle on the left and you think about yourself, you're an individual who exists within the context of your family and your community. And to think about where we're headed with this framework, the idea is to really build upon those three circles. And if you look at the circle in the middle, and you're receiving disability services, sometimes those services are wrapped so tightly around that person that it cuts them off from their family and their community. And so we need to look at, how do we make sure supports aren't barriers to good lives that people are working on? So looking at the circle on the right, you have the person existing within the context of their family and their community, but they're receiving those services and supports only where and when needed. And those are looking at the integrated services and supports, and those are represented by the stars throughout the circle. The LifeCourse also focuses on the all. And so this is what we call the all triangle. And the LifeCourse, no matter, regardless of age, ability, the role that you play, all people are considered in our vision, values, policies, practices for supporting individuals and families. We truly believe that all families have choices and that they should have access to the supports that they need. And so looking at that triangle, on a national level, only about 25% of people are receiving formal services, which is represented by the green portion. And so there's about 75% of people that are not receiving any types of formal services. And so the LifeCourse really encompasses all people, whether they're receiving services or not. And this is also a great partnership between the DD Council and the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Administration, because the DD Council, we do look at the all. We're not just looking at those individuals who are receiving formal services. So the life course, when we're looking at the goal, which is that all individuals will achieve self-determination, interdependence, productivity, integration, and inclusion in all facets of community life, and where families will be supported in ways that maximize their capacity, their strengths, and abilities to be able to best nurture and support their individuals to achieve their goals. How do we operationalize that? And that is through the 3 buckets of support. And so these are the 3 strategies for supporting individuals and their families. And so the first bucket is looking at discovery and navigation. And that sometimes, we may not need anything but information. And so this bucket focuses on information and training so that we know about all of the options and possibilities. The second bucket is looking at connecting and networking. And so this is looking at peer-to-peer services, maybe some parent-to-parent support, because we know many times individuals benefit from talking to others who've been in their shoes, who can help navigate something in their life, who's been there, done that. And then finally, there's the goods and services bucket. And those are things that we connect with to make our daily lives possible. And so those are the 3 strategies in helping to support individuals and families. And we really want to make sure that we're always filling all of the buckets, that we're not just dropping everything into the goods and services bucket. And then the life course has created 6 life domain areas. And these domains are the different aspects and experiences in life that we all consider as we age and grow, such as daily life and employment, community living, social and spirituality, healthy living, safety and security, and citizenship and advocacy. And in the disability field, oftentimes the service system and many times even families tend to focus only on the health and safety of the family member, but they're leaving out those important discussions around friendships and how they're going to get around in the community and what do they want to do during the day and what activities are important to them. And so the framework identified areas to move beyond health and safety, but they also address it because it's important. And so it's really about how can we ensure choice, but also provide safety. And then we also want to recognize that all of the domains are interrelated and connected. And so what happens in one area of our life affects another area of our life. And so it's really important to recognize this as we're supporting individuals so that we can work to make their lives complete and most fulfilling as possible. And so another key principle of the life course is the concept of trajectory. And the trajectory is the path that will either lead you towards the good life, and those are things that you want in your life, which is represented by the upper bubble. And then also to think about their vision of what they don't want in their life, which is represented in the lower bubble. And so a lot of times, individuals with disabilities, they're not asked what they want. What is their vision for a good life? A lot of times we just jump straight into the planning that we really don't pause to take the time to truly understand what they're working towards. And so once we know where they want to head, we can figure out what we can help do to plan, problem solve, and support them to get their good life. And so this is called the trajectory. All right, so I showed the slide earlier with the 3 circles, where the person exists within the context of their family and community, but only receive the services and support only where and when needed. And so we call those supports the integrated support star. And there are 5 categories on each point of the star that really helps to ensure that you're not putting your eggs all in one basket. So that includes looking at relationships. So who are your family, friends, and acquaintances that can help you with a goal that you want to work on, or help you problem solve or plan around an issue. Also looking at your own personal strengths and assets. We all bring something to the table, and we all have strengths and skills that we can contribute. Looking at technology, there's lots of technology, lots of ways to use technology. So that's very important to include. Looking at community resources, and these are resources that anyone can access in the community. And then finally, looking at eligibility specific supports. And so the integrated support star can be used in a lot of different ways. It can be used for mapping supports for a good life, understanding supports that are wanted and needed. It can be used for strategic planning and problem solving, and also helping people make decisions about what they want and what they don't want in their life. And so identifying the supports that they're using now, but to also think about other supports that might be helpful, because the right supports and a combination of supports can really help ensure a good quality of life for that individual. So those are the key principles of charting the life course. And I know that I went through them very quickly and briefly due to time constraints. However, we do have several Charting the Life Course ambassadors who provide presentations across the state. So if you're interested in hearing a more in-depth presentation, please let us know, and we'd be happy to provide a presentation for you. All right, so then I wanted to show a couple of examples of how other states are using the Life Course framework for transformational change. And so this is Maryland, and Maryland has embedded or incorporated the Life Course principles language in their waiver language. And so as you can see here, it's the language in purple, and they use the Life Course to inform the work of the DD agency. And so the Life Course is embedded throughout all of their programs and is articulated consistently, in each of their waivers. And then Hawaii, they have what is called Possibilities Now. And this is the way that they've been working to improve the services and the way that they support their individuals and their families. And so they have a statewide plan to improve community integration, which is required by their home and community-based services rule. And that was called My Choice, My Way. And so they are working with, their DD agency is working with other state agencies to build trainings for staff and providers. And their goal is to have all staff and agencies become more person-centered so that they can truly support each individual to achieve their good life. So these were just a couple of different examples, but all 19 community of practice states are working towards or have already embedded the LifeCourse into their existing policies and practices. All right, so before I turn it over to my colleague Tedra, she is going to be talking about Michigan's community of practice and how we're utilizing the framework into the person-centered planning process. I did want to pause and just check to see if there were any questions.
I don't see any specific questions in the chat, Tracy. Though I do believe someone has raised their hand. Just one moment.
Okay.
Well, if it was raised, it's not anymore. So if you do, someone has a question and they'd like to raise their hand. Oh, wait, just one moment. Let me unmute you, Jane.
Oh.
Okay. Jane, you should be able to ask your question.
Okay. My question is kind of a conglomerate, if you will. We're talking about best practices in terms of people's developmental, disabled peoples and what their choices are and whatnot. But I'm really becoming a little jaded by the fact that Medicaid, for example, I have a client that wants to go back to day program so bad, that's all they talk about. But now Medicaid is saying if she can't work successfully in the community, they won't pay to let her go to day program. A lot of my consumers want to do things and go places, but by the time they pay for an AFC home, they don't even have $40 a month left to do anything. It just seems to me like, for example, I have a consumer that wants to go to school, but there's an age limitation to that. He can't go to school. I have people that would benefit from the autism practices, but again, there's an age related there. So how is it that you can look at what people want out of their lives and create their best life forward when Medicaid and other systems are denying them that opportunity?
Well, that is a very good question. And I'm not sure that I have the answer for you at this time.
Okay.
But I can definitely, this is about, and I know that it's very frustrating because, this is really all about helping that person achieve what they want in their life. And
Right.
so, and then when you have all of those systems in place where it won't let them move forward, then that just becomes a whole nother issue. And I'm going to actually ask my colleague Tedra to see if she has a response or can offer maybe some more insight to your question.
Thank you.
Jane, can you repeat your question, please? I was having a PowerPoint issue. And
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear it fully, but
I was talking about how a consumer may have a vision for the future in terms of living their best life, but there are systems in place that limit that. For example, I have a client that is desperate to go back to the day program, but because of Medicaid changing the rules, they won't be allowed to go to day program anymore. I have a client that wants to go to school, but because of the age limitation, he can't go back to school because he's past the age of, I'm not sure if it's 24 or 26. They might want to go on a vacation, but they're living in a group home where by the time they pay the group home for their expenses, they'll have maybe $30 to $40 a month left over. I really see that there are some systems in place that are really interfering with a person having a vision and moving forward to their best life. So I was looking for suggestions.
that is Jane, that is a really good question. No, but I think it's just out of the scope of, we're supposed to stay really high level. But Marie, if you can give us Jane's email, I think this is really worth exploring more, as we're going to
Okay.
be promoting this. So I think we want to be able to plan for the instances, that you're talking about, and really be able to provide some solutions up front if supports coordinators run into these issues as they're working with people on their trajectory and their vision for a good life. And so I do know that we're supposed to not really get into the individual cases. So we will get your email from Marie and reach out, and we can have a further dialogue about that, if that is okay with you, Jane.
That would be fine. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Great,
I'll
thank
get you
you.
the information, Tedra. I don't see any additional questions. Oh, I do see a question from Mike. Just one moment before we proceed. We'll be able to take this question and move on.
Asking me to unmute is dangerous. but
I
necessary.
can always mute you again.
I know. It seems almost trite, but it's not. My primary function here is supported employment. And that's working with our consumers, we call them clients now, to determine what current benefits they receive from Social Security. So we can go online using that Michigan website to generate reports showing what the impact a job based upon a hypothetical wage is going to have on their current benefits. Additional revenue is what everybody needs. The AFC scenario is just very sad. I can't imagine anybody having to live with $30 a month or something like that. They call that a quality of life. So I think to the extent that we're able to improve our supported employment success, helping people find jobs, doesn't have to be a huge job, but let's say if you made $300 a month and you only saw a $150 drop in the SSI benefit. Ultimately, that is a meaningful change, and they could use every last dollar possible to help them kind of create more opportunities for themselves, particularly when they do that in conjunction with all of us who have their backs.
Mike, that is a really excellent point. And one of the things that is happening, I don't know if there's any going on now, but there are several benefits planning sessions that are happening for the general public, so people understand exactly what you just mentioned, because a lot of people aren't told that. A lot of people are just told that you can't work or you'll lose your benefit, and they don't ever they never get to know that you can work to a certain level, keep your benefits, that you can work to a certain level. You could apply for the Medicaid Freedom to Work program, work full time and still get Medicaid benefits depending on your situation. And so one of the things that the council, employment is one of our values, and economic security is one of the values of the council. And we have been working diligently to really educate individuals and their families about their rights around employment and earnings, so that we can encourage more people to get into the workforce.
No, you're right. It's an awareness issue.
And as a matter of fact, the LifeCourse has an entire set of tools geared towards, they have an entire set of tools that are specifically geared towards helping people plan for employment.
That's terrific.
And so I will ask Marie to share the link to the website for that.
Thank you very much.
So that you could so you can explore those.
We'll do that. Okay, so we're going to move on. If anybody does have additional questions, feel free to type them into the chat and we'll be able to get to them a little bit later in the presentation.
I see we do have one question in the Q&A box about the upcoming benefits planning session. And I will gladly get that info to Marie so she can send it out. Might as well maybe Marie send it to the entire listserv for this.
Yep, following the presentation, everyone will receive a link to this PowerPoint as well as a recording of today's presentation, so we can include any of these additional links in that email as well.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So I'm going to talk with you about our actual pre-pilot design. So as Tracy mentioned, we're one of 19 states that are part of this national community of practice. And what we're tasked with as COP, and we call it COP for short. So if you hear me say COP, that's what I'm referring to. We were tasked with setting a goal for systems change utilizing the Charting the LifeCourse framework. So our goal in Michigan is actually the title of our presentation. And we want to use the LifeCourse framework to improve person-centered planning practices in Michigan. And so the way that we're doing that is by implementing a pilot project. And before we got to an actual, large scale pilot with an evaluation, we wanted to do a test to see if this was even feasible to do in the service system. And as you know, as we've told you, several other states are doing this and have really embedded the LifeCourse into their, into their services. But every state has a different system. So the way that we are going about that, the way we decided to go about it was to do this in 2 phases. So phase 1 was a pre-pilot design team. And that team, we talked about a shared vision for person-centered planning, looked at how we decided that we needed some help from the field to help us decide if this was really something that we could do in Michigan. And then so they spent a couple months, and that's what they spent a couple months learning the different tools and the different principles of the LifeCourse and implementing them with people that are actually on their caseload. And so that's what I'm going to talk with you about, is what happened throughout that implementation. So we're leveraging our opportunity to introduce the Charting the LifeCourse framework and tools in the process. And one of our objectives, as I stated before, is to design and implement a comprehensive pilot project that will result in promising practices. And really what we're looking for is overall, we want the department to really adopt and support people in the field using the LifeCourse principles in their person-centered planning, into facilitation, including the facilitation of plans down to how people's plans are implemented in the system. So we looked at the roles, responsibility, training, projected implementation costs. We started doing some of that with the pre-pilot design, but overall, that's the data that we'll be looking to gather from the pilot. So we started with a shared vision of looking at what did we want? What was our vision for the system, and what is our vision for the people being served in the system? So really from an end user perspective, how do we want this plan? How should planning be for the end user? And we identified as a group that person-centered planning is really the key, and having a solid plan, that process and the product from that process is really the key of helping people get a good life. So, sorry about that. We needed to make sure that this could actually work in Michigan, as we said. And so we formed a pre-pilot design team because we still have to do some work with some other parties. So that was really like the pre-pilot design. And then we'll have a more formal design team that'll help to work through the metrics and evaluation process and all of that. So for the pre-pilot design team, the people that are on our state team participated in that process. A team of people from Central Michigan Community Mental Health, a team from CLS Wayne and Oakland, and a team from Integrated Services Kalamazoo. We wanted to make sure that we had geographic representation. We wanted to make sure that this, could be implemented with people in rural versus urban settings, in places that had great public transportation and places that might not have any public transportation. And so these three teams check those boxes. These three locations check those boxes for us. So the design team was asked to participate in monthly meetings and monthly coaching calls. At each meeting, they learned about charting the life course, about a principle of charting the life course, and then they practiced/tested the principle using identified strategies in the tools, in the accompanying tools, as part of their day-to-day work. And again, with people, with individuals on their caseloads. And we tested people, I think, as single digit ages all the way up into their 60s. There was a really wide range of folks that use that they use the tools on. So we got pretty good data across the good swath of test cases. Members of the teams identified innovative ways to use the principle and tools related in-person centered planning. So as you all know, everyone, you come at planning at that process individually, and you do kind of what works for you and what works best for the person. And so the members of the teams they just needed to use the principles in the planning. We didn't give them other information, and everyone kind of finessed and found different innovative ways to approach that with their people. At the following month, so we would meet 1 month, and then the next month we would come back and debriefed and shared feedback related to whatever strategy was previously implemented in day-to-day work. So people really dug into, okay, the strategy was good, but it took a long time. If I was going to do it with more people, I would do this differently, or this one didn't really work with this particular person, so we stuck with the prior strategy and that worked well. So it really ran the gamut. And after each meeting, so we had a verbal debriefing, and then after each meeting, team members responded to a brief survey. And their feedback is going to help inform the final pilot project that is implemented in the field. So the design team was comprised of case managers, access staff, and supervisors. Central Michigan, the CMH for Central Michigan included staff for multiple counties, including Mecosta, Isabella, and Midland. So if you're not familiar with those counties, they're pretty small, pretty rural counties. Between the three sites, the team used the principles and tools in a variety of situations, including initial entry into services, also known as access, parents and young children, adults and children in transition, and individuals who report that they are in transition and things are going well. Teams also had support of agency leadership and reported that they experienced several benefits, including those predicted prior to the start of the process. So the stuff that we kind of predicted was that people would really like it, because we found that anytime we've engaged people in the tools, they system or not, they really like that process. Families really like the process of going to these tools. And the team members use their existing roles to identify activities and strategies and analyze and evaluate their implementation. So what are our next steps? Right now, the report, a full report of phase 1 is being written, which includes, the data from the surveys, the narrative information. The other thing that I think I forgot to mention is that there was a facilitator for the design team. And in addition to meeting as a whole team at the coaching calls, each team met individually with the facilitator, and she helped provide individual TA if necessary to several of the team members. And so the information that was shared during those individual meetings with the facilitator will also be included in the report. We will be at the fall conference, the CMHA fall conference in October. It won't be Tracy and I, it'll be members from each team talking about their experience in providing some of the data from that pre-pilot design. We want to make sure, and we're doing that because we want to make sure it's a transparent process, and also so that other people in the field can kind of get a feel for what this would be like if you were actually using it with the people that you're supporting. So the next thing after the conference would be phase 2, which is the actual pilot. So the pilot will include engagement with the community of practice, BHDDA staff, individuals with lived experience, and staff and individuals served in the pilot sites. What we know for sure is that our pilot will include education and training for individuals and families. So not only will supports coordinators and people doing case management get the education on the tools, the LifeCourse tools and principles, the individuals being served and their family members will receive it as well. We want to involve the education or educate school systems or other partnering organizations that work with the CMH on a regular basis, so that everyone that's working with a person or anyone that a person could come in contact with as they are using this new way of planning. This new way of planning has been introduced to them. Anyone that is working with them will kind of know about what they're working on. And then engagement with case holders and individuals served, including use of Charting the LifeCourse tools and feedback from all participants. And so we know that we're going to have a multi-site evaluation, and that evaluation is going to give us data from from all of the participants. We're looking at the outcome measures to ensure that the framework is helping to achieve, we're going to decide on what the outcome measurements are, as well as some of the indicators that we'll be tracking throughout the process. And what we're looking for is, from this process, is recommendations for statewide adoption and rollout. The pilot, the other thing that hasn't been decided is how long that pilot process is going to be. There's still some stuff that we're deciding. So the pilot's not going to start right at the beginning of the fiscal year, because we still have some decisions that we need to make as a team about what we want to see going forward. But in a nutshell, that's just a brief report about what we've done so far. And I believe we started in January. The pre-pilot design team lasted for 6 months. And so we're waiting for that final report to be drafted so we can continue to keep this process moving forward. And that is all I have for you. And I would like to pause now and ask if there are any questions.
I am not seeing any questions in the chat. And again, please, if you do have a question, you're welcome to type it into the chat for Tedra. Okay, well, seeing none, then I think we'll actually might be able to end our webinar a tad bit early today. As I said before, all participants will be receiving an email that will include the PowerPoint attached to this presentation, a recording of the presentation, and then we'll also include the link to the Charting to the Life course tools, and then the information on the benefits planning sessions in the email. And so unless there are any additional questions, or if you have more to add, Tedra, that will wrap up today's webinar. We want to thank both Tedra and Tracy from the DD Council for presenting today, and hope to see you all next month.
Thank you, Marie. I don't have anything to add, but I would just like to say to people, hopefully if you attend the October Fall Conference, you will attend our session to listen to the full report and hear direct accounting by your colleagues from our 3 pilot sites.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tedra. All right, everyone. Well, then thank you again for attending, and we hope to see you next time.